Hey guys, going live, just leaving home now. The reason why I'm going live, I just thought I might do a shout out on the Tufuga family in South. Just my family and all over Samoa, New Zealand and elsewhere, and to my in-laws and my wife in stateside. So we're at Chris Mead in Logan City in Brisbane. We're heading over to visit Grandma at the memorial, the cemetery. We celebrate her 100 years since she was born on August the 10th, 1924 in Asal village in Savaii Island, Samoa. So this is just a shout out for all of the descendants of the Fuifui Tufuga, the daughter of Tolua Tufuga from Matawai, Utuloa and Utuloa Asau, and to her mother, who was Nive Tolua Tufuga. Fuifui Tufuga survived by she was survived by 4 children. 2 had passed away at a young age, 1 was stillborn. And then that left my mother. My mother was the eldest, firstborn. Then Frank, Nive, and Philip Talua. So those are our family, my uncles and aunts. There's only 2 still alive, Uncle Frank and Uncle Phil. And those are the last survivors of the late Fuifui Tufuga's family. Anyway, that's the shout out for the centenary of my grandma. So we commemorate it today on August the 10th, 2024. So that's 100 years old. In the meantime, a lot of things have been going on. Not much on Samoa, apart from the Olympics and that war in Ukraine. Interestingly, the Ukrainians have decided to invade Russia, which is a clear sign of desperation by the Ukrainians in order to attract global attention. And also to test 2 things. First, they've attacked Kursk, which is a big no-no, because Kursk is historically a sacred place for it's the place in which during the Patriotic War of 1943, in particular in the Battle of Kursk, the Nazi Wehrmacht, the 6th Army, had the largest tank battle in recorded history at the Battle of Kursk, and that saw the resounding defeat of the Wehrmacht, the German Nazis, and their tanks against the Soviet Union Red Army and their tanks. Now, the Ukrainians are attacking Kursk. Now, historically, that will motivate the Russians like no other. Particularly the memories of the Patriotic War. The Russians will always remember Kursk as a battlefront in which inspired all the Russians to fight against Nazism. Now, the Ukrainians attacking Kursk has just reminded the Russians of that. Now, when you have that situation of the Russians fighting in Kursk, you would you would only realize how you've only inspired the Russians even more so than ever before. And the whole idea of focusing on President Putin is no longer the issue now. Now you're dealing with 147 million Russians, because when you attack Kursk is a sacred area and a sacred city for the Russians, because it's directly linked to the patriotic war. Now, if you want to inspire the Russians, you either attack two cities, Volgorod, which is Stalingrad, or Kursk, two of the major cities near Ukraine that are sacred in Russian patriotic war history. Now, if you're not a historian and you don't know what Kursk means to the Russians, you just stood on somebody's toes. You just pinched a nerve that it could even result to nuclear war. Now, that's the dumbest thing the Ukrainians have ever done. Either because they're Russians trying to inspire other Russians, or they're Ukrainians who are pro-Russian trying to inspire the Russians to wipe them out, or to completely invade them indefinitely. But one thing is for certain, like the invasion of Krinky in Kherson Oblast, the Ukrainians are committed to a suicide mission by invading Russia directly, by attempting to invade Kursk, and to try to establish a bridgehead in Sumy and the Kursk Oblasts, which is the southern parts of Russia, or northern Ukraine. Now, from that standpoint, that issue of the Ukrainian war, it is the whole idea of the five grievances for the defeat of Ukraine. The five processes are a denial, and now they're in that bargaining area of their defeat and their eventual surrender. It is through their defiance, which is by attacking Russia and relying upon the combat effectiveness of the F-16s, which are now in use in Ukraine. Unfortunately for the Ukrainians and the soldiers on the ground, the F-16s will not be used in air support for their ground offensive. They're meant to be there, but they're not. So they're using FPV drones to offer them ground support rather than the expected F-16s. Conversely, the Russians are using the Ka Kamov Ka-52s attack helicopters to strafe the NATO-issued armory, which includes a lot of Strikers and the Hercules recovery vehicles, and the Leopard 2 tanks, which are German-designed tanks, which have been destroyed by Russians. And the progress for the Ukrainians have been hampered somewhat by the Russian counteroffensive or the counterattack. But the Russian reserves have been deployed, whereas the Ukrainians were expecting that the redeployment of Russian troops from the Ukrainian line of contact towards the Sumy and Kursk Oblast to their newly formed Ukrainian line of contact against the Russians at Kursk. The line of contact has somewhat expanded about 15 to 20 kilometers north of the Ukrainian border towards Kursk city. Blunder matched only by the Krinky blunder, which cost 3,000 Ukrainian Marines their lives, all for no purpose. There was no purpose whatsoever except for the extermination of 3,000 soldiers. That is like the entire 20 years of American killed in action in the entire 20 years of Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. The 3,000 Ukrainian troops, Marines and NATO mercenaries that were killed in Krinky along the Dnieper River is a complete waste of life and the waste of NATO and Ukrainian lives in Krinky for that operation. Now, what we've seen in Kursk is something similar, and that is NATO and Ukraine who have obviously lost them. But it's attention seeking. They're trying to grab a bit of 15 minutes of your time on social media at a cost of thousands of Ukrainian and Russian troops and civilians' lives, all for a 15-minute grab on social media. That's absolute ridiculous. It's outrageous. It's mindless slaughter. It's just crazy warmongers. In the meantime, what's making things even worse is the Olympic Games, the Paris Olympics. The whole idea of European Western nations stirring up the Chinese is exasperating the Sino-Russo cringe of Western countries, especially Australia. Australians' poor sportsmanship. The swimming team is atrocious behaviour. The behaviour of the Americans splashing water bottles towards the Chinese swimming coach is atrocious behaviour. It is common assault. It is criminal behaviour. Not only that, there was a media person who deliberately walked into Pan Shanli whilst he was walking along just walking along the road, and a camera woman, she walked directly at him and shoulder charged him. That is atrocious behaviour by Western media, by Europeans. They're Europeans. It's just pure racism. And listening to the Australian coaches and the Australian media talk about drugs by the Chinese is atrocious behaviour. It is poor sportsmanship. Now, what are the ramifications of bad sportsmanship? A, you may end up with a war between NATO and China and Russia. 2, the LA Olympics may be boycotted by Americans, by the Russians and Chinese, and even BRICS member nations. And 3, BRICS may even form their own alternative to the Olympics with the BRICS Games, whereby they will have Olympic events at the BRICS Games to completely replace the Olympics. That is what is likely to happen with a bifurcated world order where BRICS nations and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization will form their own world order, where they will ignore A, the United Nations, the Security Council, and the permanent 5 member nations and their veto. B, they ignore the International Criminal Court system or the International Criminal Justice system, and ignore all of the directives issued by the present Western and Eurocentric influenced international world order and the international rule of law, what's going to happen is that an Orwellian regionalism will arise, whereby the Chinese and the Russians will lead their own world order, ignoring the so-called westernized-led international rule of law. That includes the Statutes of Rome and the International Criminal Court system, the International Criminal Justice system, whereby countries like Russia and China will ignore it absolutely. Now, what's happening here, countries that have hitherto been the orchestrators and the decision makers of international rule of law are now being challenged directly by those who disagree with it. Now, these countries are being led by Russia, China, and now Israel. Now, international rule of law is highly subjective. Now, that's what's happening here. The international rule of law is subjectivity. And when you have a subjective perception of the international rule of law and what is perceived to be war crimes, then the only way to win a war crime case is through trial by combat. Now, what is the trial by combat? Presently, we have the Ukrainian war. If Russia wins the war, trial by combat means that the International Criminal Court lost. You will lose when Russia wins the war. Now, if Russia loses the war, you're going to end up with nuclear war. So how are you going to win? You're not going to win. Russia will win. Now, you've made your own bed, and you're going to have to sleep with it. Now, countries like Australia, the sheer arrogance, and little things like sports. It's the little things. The little things like splashing water at somebody. It's the little things. It's the little things of being rude to somebody. It's the little things. Little things like that leads to wars, leads to people getting killed because of little things, like saying you're a drug cheat. Little things like that leads to wars and leads to people getting killed. What's the lesson here? Mannerisms. Knowing how to be polite. Even if you're correct, you got to be polite. And when you show absolute disregard for politeness and be disrespectful, no matter whether you're correct, whether they are drug cheats, you don't disrespect people that have bigger bombs than you, have nuclear weapons that can kill you, that have cyber hacking technologies that can hack your country, destroy your cyber technology, and nuke you. If you have countries that have that technology, you don't fuck with them. And when you do fuck with them, they will fuck you. And that's what's going to happen. Now, you've done that, and you've made your bed, you're going to sleep in it. That's all for now. Just arriving at my grandma's place, and we're going to say g'day to her. And my grandma died in 2009. She migrated to Australia in 1985. We migrated to Australia in 1981. So we've been here 43 years. 43 years we've been in this country. And this country is a great country, except for the Australians. It's a great country, except for these arrogant Anglo-Saxon pricks who are rude to all over the world, who are rude to every country imaginable. So we have to be rude back to them. And that's what the Chinese are doing. They're being rude back to these Australians and these Europeans because they're very rude. It's just like the justice system here in Australia. Our justice system is very rude and insulting and racist. You have to tolerate things like that. You judges who are racist. All these Anglo-Saxon judges, they are rude, racist, culturally intolerant, and ignorant. And they think they know everything when they don't. And they're very rude. So, we have to just roll with the punches. We just have to endure it. And it's just like how Russia, China, and Israel have to tolerate the International Criminal Court and their war crimes arrest warrants that are absolutely highly subjective and highly, subjected to conjecture. And yet, the Western world would resort to trial by media. And they would always think that they know everything. They think that they're justified in saying what they're saying and issuing arrest warrants as they feel justified in doing so. All right, here's Grandma. We've arrived. So, that's my spill on. So, this is Grandma. Talafa, Grandma wa kongelo salauka sanga. Oh, she died on the 19th of May. I thought it was the 9th, but anyway, I got it incorrect. So, that's about all I've got to say for this day. So we're here and seeing Grandma. So that's for the family back in Pia. Oh, and sorry, Aso. Anyway, there's the rest of the other clan. We'll go see Mum, eh? So my mum, her flowers have bloomed. This is my mum. And that's Grandma's eldest daughter, Grandma Tufuga. And these are her roses. They've bloomed. Yeah, eh? Yeah, so Australia's a good place, except for the Australians. Right, sister's sitting over there in my car. So, this place is full of Samoans. There's Samoans everywhere. Okay, yeah, this world is crazy. Nazis are everywhere. Nazis are creeps. They're sick people. These Europeans and these Anglo-Saxons, they're sick people. And the worst thing about it is that they become judges. They become purveyors of influence. And it's bad influence. And they're judges, prosecutors, lawyers. And the way they're treating countries like China and Russia, it's going to end up in a global war because of their arrogance. But anyway, that's enough for now. All right.